Dropping a witness goes wrong. Somebody done tweaked out there, folks. Let's get past this ad. Hey, hit the like
Go
button
to
and subscribe
suno.com
button.
and hit create.
Hit the like button and subscribe button, man. Get it ready, folks. You already know what's going on. Let's get into it.
Any gangster knows the worst sin in the underworld is to become a snitch. Of course, criminals don't always find out
Can't be
who
out
the
here
snitch
telling,
in their
folks,
crew
but
is,
that's what
and
they
sometimes
doing,
that
folks.
snitch
It's
gets
trend.
away, gives the Fed what they need, and accepts a deal afterwards. When criminals do find out who the snitch is, however, things
It's a
go
wrap.
bad. When someone decides to cooperate with the Fed, they're supposed to go. But if you've watched parts 1 through 3 of this series at this point, you know that usually almost always goes wrong. Murder never plays out the way it does on TV. You're not going to get away magically because some show scriptwriter gives you plot armor. You're going to get caught, and whatever charges you were already facing are going to be 10 times worse. Well, in late 2023, a drug trafficker from Kentucky learned a brutal lesson when he was facing drug charges, clipped the witness, and not only got charged for the drug charges without the witness testimony anyways, but is now facing the death penalty.
Damn.
Raleigh Deshaun Lamar was a 30-year-old drug trafficker operating out of Lexington, Kentucky. Lexington isn't a city people usually
What's that, the
associate with
bus
serious
song?
organized crime. It's not a crazy important city in the country, but the cost of living all over America is too expensive nowadays, and people need to eat. The west end of the city had been home to a street gang called the Hot Boys for years. The Hot Boys operated in the West End, ran drugs, committed violence, and feuded constantly with rival East End gangs. That feud had been going on long enough and had produced enough bodies that the FBI had been paying close attention to the whole operation. Lamar wasn't just a member of the Hot Boys, he was one of their biggest earners. Starting in late 2021, law enforcement began investigating his drug operation, and what they found was significant. Lamar had a courier who drove to Detroit once or twice a week and brought back approximately 50
Yeah, the
pounds of
buffs on.
high-quality hashish each trip. Lamar then sold that weed by the pound across the Lexington area. It was a steady, profitable operation, and Lamar had done well enough by it that when police executed a search warrant at his residence on April 6, 2022, they seized over $1.86 million in cash, 4 expensive vehicles, and several firearms. The total assets seized came to more than $2 million. He was indicted
Crazy,
for
dude.
conspiracy to distribute over a ton of marijuana and money laundering. Lamar wasn't
Must have
indicted alone.
1.6
Swept
in
up in
the
the same
hood.
indictment was a 28-year-old Lexington man named Christopher Lewis. Lewis had been part of Lamar's operation and was facing the same federal charges. But at some point after his arrest, Lewis, I guess, realized spending the next 20 years showering with other men wasn't worth it. He started cooperating with the government. He agreed to testify against Lamar at trial, and in July of 2023, Lewis's sentencing was continued and pushed back. Lewis was going to testify against Lamar first, and prosecutors wanted that testimony on record before they dealt with Lewis's own case. That continuance was noted in discovery materials provided to Lamar's defense team, which of course meant Lamar found out about it. He learned his co-defendant was cooperating against him, and Lamar, sitting on the remnants of a drug operation worth $2 million and with a gang behind him, decided that Lewis had to die before the trial started. That was the worst mistake Lamar ever made, second only to hitting the streets in the first place. Lamar was a more powerful man than the government thought. The Hot Boys weren't a loose collection of friends. They were an organized West End crew with members willing to kill, and Lamar was a significant figure in that world. He reached out to William Kajan Dixon, who was 28 years old. Dixon reached out to Daquis DeMar Sharp, who went by the nickname Killer Quiz. Killer Quiz didn't get that nickname from nothing. He was known to law enforcement as a Hot Boys member and was already linked to prior shootings. Investigators would later trace a black Acura he was known to drive to shell casings at multiple crime scenes. Also recruited were Desmond Elijah Bellamy, aka Baba, and Jatisse Alvin Parks, aka JT. D'Angelo Montevious Boone was also brought into the plan. These were the men Lamar was going to use to kill Christopher Lewis. And according to prosecutors, the agreed price for the whole job was $1,000, split 4 ways at $250 per person. Now just ask
Wow.
yourself, how down bad and goofy do you have to be to clip someone for what is less than a family supermarket trip in 2026 America? In the days before the murder, the crew conducted surveillance on Lewis using their phones. Cell phone data later pulled by the FBI placed members of the group in the area of Lewis's home and his workplace on September 27th and 28th, 2023, 2 days before the planned shooting. They were tracking his movements, learning his schedule, and figuring out the right moment to make their move. On the night of September 28th, Dixon texted Bellamy about the plan, writing that they were going to go get that motherfucker and asking whether it was a go. Bellamy replied that it was. They planned out their $250 murder on iPhones, if you can imagine that. I guess you get what you pay for. On September 29th, 2023, at around 8:15 in the morning, Christopher Lewis arrived at his job at Coke Air on Trade Street in Lexington. It was a regular workday. He pulled into the parking lot, got out of his car, and that was it. 3 masked guys stepped out of a dark-colored sedan, later confirmed to be Killer Quiz's black Acura, and opened fire. The Acura had been sitting there for hours before Lewis arrived. Lewis was shot multiple times in the parking lot, fell dead, and the shooters left the scene immediately after the killing. When police responded, they found Lewis dead, the parking lot covered in shell casings. Witnesses reported seeing the masked men, but by the time police arrived, the Acura was already gone. Lewis was killed before he ever set foot in a courtroom to testify. Within hours of the shooting, Dixon and Sharp were texting about the payment. That evening, Sharp texted Dixon at 7:25 p.m. "We gonna give Fred Prob 100 each?" Dixon confirmed. Sharp then texted at 7:28 p.m. Bet because he was talking about a band, but either way it was 250 each from the 4 of us. Dixon replied, "Yeah, it don't matter to me. He just got in the car and said, y'all just give me 5. But what you want to give him?" Referring to another participant, Quincino Lamont Wade Jr., who'd reportedly jumped in the car and said he'd take $500 for being the getaway. Now, just to recap, they planned the hit on iMessage, used one of their own personal vehicles to carry it out, had their phones, which can be geographically traced, on them, and then texted about confirming the job, also on iMessage. The feds had a motherfucking field day. The FBI and local law enforcement had already connected the dots. The shell casings recovered from Lewis's murder scene matched casings from 2 previous shootings linked to the Hot Boys and the black Acura that Sharp was known to drive. Cell site location evidence placed multiple Hot Boys members conducting surveillance on Lewis in the days before he was killed. The texts between Dixon and Sharp about the payment were obtained from Dixon's phone. Cell phone data placed Lamar and other Hot Boys members in the same area of Lexington the morning after the murder. A short time later, one member posted a photo on social media posing with thousands of dollars in cash. Federal investigators also developed evidence that Quincino Lamont Wade Jr., a Hot Boys member who had been arrested in a separate firearms case, had driven the getaway vehicle after the shooting. Wade was arrested on the gun charge, but prosecutors made clear in court proceedings that they intended to indict him in connection with the murder as well. But the entire thing was completely unnecessary, because Lamar was indicted on every drug trafficking charge and received 18 years in prison without the state having Lewis's testimony in the first place. The whole thing was comically bad. Lamar, as well as the other 5 involved in clipping Lewis, were all charged with witness tampering and murder, and Lamar received his charge within prison. The state threw the book at them, charging them with literally every small case they could pull out of their asses, like use of interstate commerce facilities in the commission of murder for hire, which is a charge I'm sure most Americans don't even know exists. Boone was charged with 3 of 5 counts. 2 additional defendants, Casey Allison Morris and Quincino Lamont Wade Jr., were subsequently indicted in the conspiracy, bringing the total to 8 people charged in connection with Lewis's murder. The charges carry the possibility of the death penalty. Federal prosecutors confirmed that all 6 of the original defendants are eligible for capital punishment under the witness tampering by killing statute. The case is still pending, however, and none of the defendants have been convicted of the murder charges as of this video. Lamar is already in federal prison serving his 18-year drug sentence, while the new charges work their way through the court. The others are detained pending trial. However, the text, cell phone data, shell casing matches, and the $250 per person payment discussion are all on record, and time-stamped to fit the exact timing of the murder. Would you be willing to face the death penalty for a quarter band? If you watched to the end of this video, be sure to give it a like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Crimeology and our other 2 channels for even better content.
Y'all heard him, bro. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Appreciate if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Hit the notification bell, man. Yeah, they tweak, folks. Ain't no way in hell y'all went to go smoke somebody for $250 a piece, bro. $250, bro. Sent y'all ass off.
Cushy, I love it. Hey, cushy, I love to use it. It's therapeutic, flow sick. Be throwing up. It's therapeutic, Glock 6 with extra clip. I'm very suited, money getting.